Kage amaklaks gea, gea bashin gea. Kage amaklaks gea bashin kaidish gea we aheo. Kage amaklaks gea, gea bashin gea. Kage amaklaks gea bashin gea momos gea we aheo. For the University of Oregon's 11th Undergraduate Research Symposium, my creative work presentation will focus on how Indigenous language revitalization coincides with land back via the explosion of violent settler cows. And then slowly come in.
Move in.
Mm-hmm. Waklisat ne'a Lofanitani sasat ne'a modakni choi black choi talakwa choi oaksigni choi tongin ne'a blitk sniwits Gesep Gao Natalie Ball P'esep Gao Vernon Miller Choi Oloseni Aisea Golip Gao Robin Mack Gossip Go Michael Ray Ball Dawip Go Lineni Aisea Blockship Go Hono Aisea Gao Blogochip Marcus Ball Sasat.
Hold my hand.
Tupiup Go Kolikokos Choi Selden Cisco Yellowhammer. For this presentation, I center my identity and who I come from primarily in our language, Mukluk, in order to establish and emphasize the importance of speaking our language and creating space for it in Bushton settler spaces. Here is a quick glossary which includes some of the Mukluk language that I will be using throughout my presentation. These words will be important to know and understand as we progress throughout the presentation, especially as I will most likely not be going over these again. The words include Mukluk shawls, lwelek honksha, Bushton or Bustin, umbo, chwam or chwam, tupiup, and gesup. Please feel free to pause the video and take the necessary time to read, pronounce, and conceptualize these words for your own understanding. Reference back to this glossary is needed throughout the presentation. Disclaimer, I do not know everything and I can only speak through my own experiences and research. If you have any questions, please know that Google is free and my time is not. Let us begin. I was born and raised urban and rurally both in Portland, Oregon, as well as on my ancestral homelands in Chiloquin, Oregon. Chiloquin, Oregon is a small part of the Klamath homelands and are located in southern Oregon, which is 30 minutes from Klamath Falls and 1 hour from another part of our Klamath ancestral homelands, which is Jiwas, or the Bushton name, which is Crater Lake. Chiloquin, Oregon is also the headquarters for the Klamath tribes, which is a government representation of the Klamath, Monak, and Yahuskin peoples. For my research and to answer my research question, I wanted to focus specifically on my homelands in Chiloquin and our language, which is Mukluk Shawls, or the language of the people, also known as the Klamath language. My research question was, how can exploding settler cows aid in the revitalization of Indigenous language and land back? I explored this question through research methods such as humor, relationship, language nesting, and storytelling. The truth about stories is, that's all we are, as Thomas King once said in the Truth About Stories book. Through the research methods that I use, such as humor, relationship building, language nesting, and storytelling, I found that in shaping and constructing virtual stories, you can also shape and construct real-life stories. Furthermore, the things we say about ourselves and our communities and the stories that we tell affect what happens in real life. The stories we tell have the power to become reality. So what does exploding settler cows have to do with Indigenous language revitalization and land back? Everything. As of right now, the Klamath Tribes is in one of the biggest umbo wars in what is colonially known as the United States. This war is between the Klamath Tribes and the United States government, as well as with the violent Bushtuns that have non-consensually settled on the Klamath Tribes' homelands. The Klamath Tribes have senior umbo rights and are fighting to protect the Klamath Lake, which is home to the Koptu, Yen, and the Chwam. The Klamath Lake is currently under attack by violent agricultural Bushtuns who pollute the umbo with their livestock and illegally irrigate the umbo for their crops. Due to Bushtuns allowing their livestock, and more specifically their cows, to defecate into the umbo, the Klamath Lake is now so toxic that it is green and requires gloves to touch it. Every year since I can remember, we have been threatened by violent Bushtuns who believe that they are the true stewards of the land. This is also known as white supremacy, and our tribal headquarters receives threats of violence every year as we experience droughts. For example, this is an email blast from our tribal chairperson warning our people to stay safe due to violent Bushtun threats. The list of things our people can do to protect ourselves on this email are limited and demonstrate our vulnerabilities as Native peoples constantly under violent U.S. government rule that is implemented by Bushtuns that occupy our land. This is from one of the violent Bushtun rallies back in 2020, where they non-consensually gathered on our homelands to fight for their quote-unquote claim to our water. One of the signs said, "More water, no more fish," and is symbolic of the continuation of genocide of the Chwam and the Klamath Tribes.
Damn!
That one says more water, more fish.
No, it says more water, no more fish. Oh. It says more water, no more fish. This makes my stomach hurt.
Oh, we have to go out there.
Yeah, let's go over there.
The Chwam that reside in the Klamath Lake are bottom feeders and act as a filter to clean the bottom of the lake. Due to the violent Bushtuns toxifying the umbo, the Chwam ingest the toxins and are now on the brink of extinction and have less than 7 years to live if the U.S. government and the violent Bushtuns do not stop. It is well known to the Klamath tribal people that if the fish die, the people die. This means that if the Klamath Tribes lose the water war, not only will it be the end of our Chwam, but it means the end of our people as well. As the Klamath Tribes are in a constant battle to live, most of the funding and resources goes to legal fees in protecting the umbo. Therefore, energy and resources towards the revitalization of mukluk shawls and getting land back are almost non-existent. In conversation with the Klamath Tribes, PBS made a film about the Klamath Tribes and our fight to live and protect our people, our homelands, and our Chwam.
We're a nation of people, and this is our Aboriginal homeland.
It's awe-inspiring, how the sun hits it and how the fog lays on the river. My dad used to train swimming across there. Those are things now you wouldn't even let your animal touch it.
The lake is essentially a toxic water body.
It doesn't smell very good, and it's green.
It's one of about 35,000 left on the planet. These fish will most likely be extinct in less than 10 years.
We strongly believe, of course, that that's related to water quality. You can't have massive amounts of cattle trampling stream banks, defecating in the river.
I don't think Oregonians want to see this sort of situation occurring.
We are attached to them physically and spiritually.
We're going to fight you, and we'll fight you to the bitter end.
With respect to these fish, the clock is ticking, and we are running towards a cliff. Once they're gone, they are gone for the rest of time.
And coming back to my initial research question, how can exploding settler cows aid in the revitalization of indigenous language in land back? We can now better understand the impact of violent bush-ins and cows on the Klamath tribe's homelands. If you're still having trouble, here is a map that can simplify and better help you understand what is happening. Basically, the violent bush-ins steal and occupy the land. Their cows defecate and toxify the umbo. The umbo becomes toxic. The chwam ingest the umbo and become sick and are on the brink of extinction. And now the Klamath tribes are sick and also on the brink of no longer existing. Cows represent settler colonial genocide, white supremacy, racism, and capitalism. More specifically, they represent historical and contemporary bush-in violence and the oppression of the Klamath tribe's people. As the U.S. government and violent bush-in settlers continue to murder our people, steal our land, and erase our presence with cows, it is difficult for myself not to feel powerless at times. This is where the explosion of bush-in cows comes in. As I had mentioned before, if our fish die, our people die, and therefore this is nearing the possible end of the world for not only the Klamath tribes, but for everyone, as we are all connected. If our people don't have water, this will affect the rest of the world. I decided to produce and direct a short film about this end of the world era and what it could look like to get free. I casted my tupi-ups and had help from my p'kesep to hold the camera and help behind the scenes. The short film is a representation of Indigenous futurism, what could be and what will be. In a time where the Klamath tribes cannot give full attention to the revitalization of mukluk shawls and land back, the film creates space for those things to take place anyway. The film addresses the cows' illegal occupancy of our people's homelands and how it defecates into the umbo, threatening our lives. The film follows 3 Native youth navigating the end of the world. When faced with their bush-in cow oppressor, they must make the ultimate choice to liberate themselves and their people. In lwelek honk, the visualization of myself and my tupi-ups exploding the bush-in cows as a part of the youth of our tribe is an important visual and an act of true sovereignty over our bodies, our voice, and our land. In the beginning of the film, the youth are shown in a sepia-esque lens, representative of old Western movies that have stereotyped and shaped violent perceptions and ideologies of Native peoples since the beginning of film. In these Westerns, the Indian characters are most often portrayed as savages, which in turn validates their impending doom, as they are never truly allowed to live in the end of films. The commodification of Indian death is crucial for Westerns as it symbolizes the betterment and continuation of a so-called better America for bush-ins. These Westerns are a colonial tool for violent bush-ins to validate their thuggery during real-life theft of native lands. Although this is just a film, its implications on Native peoples are real. These types of Westerns create popular culture and imagine truths about how Natives should be treated and how, in order for a better world, Natives must only belong in the past. These Westerns and the popular culture that they create connects with how the current bush-ins on our indigenous homelands in southern Oregon treat our chwam, our umbo, and our people current day. Visually, lwelek honk does not allow for such narratives and represents the Native characters as alive and thriving. In the beginning, the youth are in a sepia-esque lens, while the bush-in cows are mainly in color, representing how film often tries to erase Native peoples, keeping them in the past sepia world while giving life and color to violent bush-in futures. Instead of humbly dying oppressed and powerless, the youth take a hold of their own narratives and say no to the bush-in cows' erasure of them. Powerfully existing and creating a future for themselves, the youth explode the bush-in cows, ridding their world of sepia-esque lens and gaining their color back, thus reclaiming their own narrative of who they are and the future that they want. Dialogue and sound play a large role in land back and the revitalization of mukluk shawls through the explosion of bush-in cows. The film is spoken all in mukluk shawls with English subtitles, which ties to elevating mukluk shawls as a vital communication and creating a physical space for the youth to conceptualize their world through a mukluk shawls lens. The film features a cacophonic symphony of both diegetic and non-diegetic sound as the youth never move their mouths with their dialogue in real time, but we can still hear their voices. The audience can guess which voice belongs to which character, but due to the fact that the voices never come directly from the characters in real time, one cannot know for sure. This creates the question of who is actually speaking. Is it the youth, or is it someone or something else? Could it be the ancestors who before them dealt with this same Bushton violence? By blurring the lines of the character dialogue, the lines between whether it is the ancestors' voices or the youth are also blurred, representative of our close proximity to the past, present, and the future. Our ancestors are never far away from us, and we are never far away from our future generations. As time is merely a social construct, we know our past, present, and future are all intertwined. The voices may be our ancestors, and we too one day will be ancestors to the future generations. Therefore, we will never know who the voices specifically belong to, because they belong to the past, the present, the future. They belong to the ancestors, they belong to us now, and they belong to the future generations. The Native youth characters act as the ancestors and the future generations. Their actions demonstrate what they will and will not accept. In the film as well as in real life, we will not accept toxic umbo or the death of our people. We are not complacent or humble at this time. We say no. Once the cows are exploded, there is no more occupancy of our lands, and the youth can now rejoice as their land is back. The capital makers are gone, and with it the white supremacist, heteropatriarchal, violent Bushton colonial system has collapsed and is no more. Through the explosion of Bushton cows comes the liberation of our Twam, our people, and the continuance of our future generations. Constructing a cinematic lwelek honk world of power, sovereignty, mukluk shawls, unapologetic explosions for land back, joy, and liberation also constructs real-life change. In reconceptualizing a world where our people are joyful and free, we create a space in the real world for such imagined futures to take place, influencing and reconstructing a popular culture and narrative with our own truth about how we will be treated and where we belong, which is in the past, present, and the future. Gepki!
Gepki!
Tapia! Gepki!
Kan the who? Kinda say walk the.
Waklisi!
Waklisi! Dwa!
Dwa! Dat dolly gena! Dat dolly gena!
Dat dolly gena!
Connie doll who?
ge. Kai ge makotske. Todo ge. Get a kadai ge.
I get kadai ge.
Kanada hu. Kindness I walk the.
Tuado ge. Tuado ge. Tuado ge. Get a skin chonwa ge.
Get a skin chonwa ge. Tuado ge. Tuado ge. Tuado ge. Kindness I walk the. Kindness I walk the. Get a funny ge. Kai get a funny gay, get a momos gay.
Get a momos ge.
Kinda so walk the. Oh yeah. Skin umble what?
Oh yeah. Skin umble what?
Skin umble what?
Oh
yeah.
Skin umble what?
Skin umble what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dwa'i sanawali.
Kai dwa.
Momos ge.
Get a momos gay.
Dwa napka.
One napka. Get a funny gay.
Lwelek honksha.
E. Get a momos gay.
Lwelek honksha. Get A stupid game.
Stupid
I get a mukluk's game. Connie don't hoot.
Get a Get a moose.
Conclusion. As Ruth Wilson states in Geographies of Racial Capitalism, capitalism requires inequality and racism enshrines it. The explosion of the Bushton cow is the explosion of the Bushton oppressors' capital. When the Bushton oppressors can no longer rely on inequality and the racism that enshrines it, capitalism can no longer function. The cow can no longer make them capital. Therefore, the environment and all living things can coexist without the threat of violent Bushton oppressors because capitalism no longer holds power. The cow is gone, and with it, settler colonialism and capitalism. The Klamath tribes can continue to live, get our homelands back, and learn mukluk shawls free from violent Bushton interference, as shown in the world of lwelek honk. To answer my research question, exploding settler cows aids in the revitalization of indigenous language and land back. Exploding the settler cow is the beginning to eradicating the whole system of white supremacy. Subkecha. If you reside in the U.S., you reside on stolen Indian land. Now that I have shared this story with you, it is now yours, too. You are now of this land and of this history. The fight to save the Chwam and the Umbo is your fight, too, and it directly affects you. We must come together to fight against white supremacy, to protect our environment and our people so that our future generations may live